Hello everyone, my name is Michael and welcome back to Sovereign Gaming, the YouTube channel where I build worlds, lots, and share my thoughts on video games that I enjoy. When the Paradox Life by You team published the Building a House video, overall, I was very impressed by it. But more importantly, this was a very substantial piece of the Life by You puzzle that players need to see, even if they are seeing it somewhat again. And that is why I am going to do a deep dive into it today, proposing questions as we watch and analyze the video together. Building and furnishing lots is very important for life simulation gamers because this is an actual gaming feature that has created YouTube channels and keeps players playing your game. I wanted to mention this because the building and furnishing of lots has to be done well since there are lots of other games now that we can compare with. Take for example Paralyze. They have, in the past, shown off how to place objects, build walls, add windows, etc. And it looks very smooth, which has driven a lot of support for that independent life simulation game. I will give credit where it is due here, and the one thing that The Sims 4 gets right, for the most part, is its lot building features, which I feel is a step above The Sims 3's lot building features build and buy mode in a lot of ways. With that said, Life by You has got some stiff competition when it comes to the build and buy modes, since those features are seeing really a renaissance and have since raised expectations amongst life simulation players. In my opinion, the bar is set pretty high, so let's see what Life by You is offering.
Hello and welcome, it's Rocio, Community Manager at Paradox Tectonic, and this week I want to walk you through some more build stuff. I know before we showed you a bit of a preview with some of our old UI, but we're making changes and we're revamping a lot of it, so I wanted to walk you through some of those changes as well as some stuff you haven't seen in build mode yet. Now I've gone ahead and made it a little bit later in the day just so the trees aren't in my way, and like you might remember from the last time, the first step is to make the shape of your house. Last time I drew it out and it was kind of funky, so let me just go ahead and build a standard square house. And a quick note up top, we are currently working through some of the build mode features right now, so you'll see me pausing, I'm taking notes, I'm playing through just like you would trying to build a house, so bear with me and bear with all of the fast forwarding while I make really bad design choices. Here you can see that I'm trying to pick out the flooring for the house. I do settle on wood. I try to get the pattern at a place where I think it will really shine in a house that's this big. Once I start to set up the rooms, you'll see that it actually is quite spacious. And I am adjusting the color a little bit because I want it to be a bit brighter. You can always add it as a preset. You can put in your own hex code if you have a specific color in mind, and you can pick from existing presets as well. And down here, you'll find your custom colors. This includes colors that you've saved previously, so you might recognize some of these from old videos.
I think that the level of customization here is impressive. Granted, this is really nothing new that we haven't seen before, since I am pretty sure that they have shown this level of customization in earlier promos. But that's okay, because we kind of needed the reminder since a lot of the discussion in September revolved around the gameplay of the Life by You characters. What specifically impresses me is the pattern scale and, hilariously, the pricing. I think that introducing the pattern scale for walls, floors, and objects just opened up thousands of creative possibilities, much like the color wheel and pattern placements did for The Sims 3. Life by You is taking this to the next level by introducing a pattern scale along with a more advanced color wheel, and that should be revered by the life simulation gamer community as something to truly be excited for, especially for builders. Let's continue on.
Another familiar feature is the ability to move your house. You can rotate it, you can raise it, and you can lower it. I'm not going to do any of these right now, but I just kind of am getting a feel for it. Let's go ahead and actually make ourselves a room. We go to the floor plan tools, and here you can see you can add boxes to extend your floor plan, create more walls. You can actually reduce your floor plan, but what we really want right now is to add interior rooms. You can still relocate your house as mentioned, and you can erase walls, but again, we want to make a room right now. Let me go ahead and draw out this room. This is a 1 bedroom, 1 bath. I'm going to leave this area here for the door. And I'm back from a quick build break so that I could take some notes on my process. Again, we're trying to make sure that build mode feels and plays well. Builders in the community, please let us know what you think in the comments, and also don't judge me too harshly on this build. So here I'm drawing the walls for the bathroom of my 1 bedroom, 1 bath. I'm leaving the living room kitchen area pretty open and spacious in case, whoever lives here needs room for activities. And I know last time the house was kind of uninhabitable, but my goal here is to make it at least somewhat habitable. And let's start by adding doors. And on the left, you'll see that we have new icons for each of our different menu options here, including furniture, doors, windows, roofs, stairs, fences, and decorations, including boxes, window dressings, and roof flares, which you can see here. From there, you have your outdoor options like plants and tiling, and your demolish tool at the bottom. Now let's actually add some doors. I'm going to need 2 interior doors, one for the bedroom, one for the bath. And I'm just kind of placing them where they make the most sense, but I can always move it later if I don't like it. And for the front door, let's go ahead and pick this out. I'll fix it up later. I think right now, let's make sure the house is actually where I want it to be. Now that I know where my front door is, I think I'm going to put this flush to the sidewalk. I'm going to go ahead and actually move the house, push the house back a little bit just so that I have room for a nice cobblestone entrance. And we do a bit of a shimmy back, and there we go. Our walls are a bit white, so let me go ahead and fix that. I opt for a pattern, and I do go through a couple of options, but ultimately I go with the classic. Now that I've settled on my pattern, I can use the little eyedropper to go ahead and apply it to each of the walls. I think I'm leaving the living room space this pattern, and I'll pick some new patterns or colors for the rooms.
Let's stop it here and take a closer look. I will start off by mentioning that I do like the candid style that Rocio is taking with the longer videos. It is much needed, and I'll recap on this at the end of today's video because I have more thoughts on what I would like to see going forward when it comes to the marketing. But the biggest question that I have at this time is painting the walls. I noticed that it looked like Rocio had to paint the walls individually, and this is an aspect of gameplay that I am particularly concerned with because it's time consuming for players to paint every wall individually as the same wall paint or wallpaper. In the Sims franchise, we can just hold shift and be done with it, and so I'm particularly concerned about a paint all walls hotkey not being used in this video. And I noticed that in this video in the comments section, other users had that same concern as well. I was also looking forward to Rocio raising or lowering the lots, but I also get that if the gameplay feature has changed since before, or if it doesn't function properly now, it's probably best not to show it. And I'll revisit this observation a little later on in this video. But for now, let's just continue watching.
Let's start with the bedroom, and I think I'm going with a color, nothing too bright. I do try out a couple of options, but as you might tell from my color schemes down here, I have my favorite color, which is purple. So I go for like a purplish gray. And again, you just apply that to the other walls in the room. And a quick detour while I'm distracted. Let me show you this tool up here. This is the toggle snap, which allows you to toggle snapping to the grid on or off. Let's get back to these walls. So if you click that icon in the upper left, that basically just brings the walls up or down. You can toggle that as you like. Let me just finish coloring these walls and we'll move on. And you can always move walls if they're not where you want them to be. And now we move on to the bathroom. So here I'm sorting by tile and I'm going through a couple of options trying to figure out what goes with this house. I already have a pattern outside, so I don't want to go too complicated. I end up settling on this classic tile and I play around with some colors, but I do settle on a nice clean mint color. And you're used to this by now, but next step is to eyedropper all the rest of the walls. So I just go through and quickly make sure all of my walls match and I have a nice cohesive bathroom setup. So I have wood flooring across the entire house right now, but let's say I wanted the bathroom to be distinct. Here I click on the entire flooring and then I click Update Room-Based Flooring. That now provides separate sections for each of the rooms. Here I can click on the bathroom and from there decide what I want it to look like. I do end up going with just clean white floors. This bathroom is going to be pretty minimalist, I think. And if I wanted to, I could do that for the bedroom as well, but I'm leaving that hardwood. Now for a quick pivot to the doors. Here I've gone ahead and set up some really bright, obnoxious colors so you can see what I'm doing. Color 1 here is the frame, and so I'm going to go ahead and set that to something that might match this wall, and maybe something that would also match the bathroom. Once I've settled on a color for that one, I can move on to the next one, which is the interior of the door. I picked something that I hope complements it. Let me know what you think about my weird doors in the comments for sure. Then we move on to part 3 of the door, and I start off with white. I can already tell that I kind of am leaning towards that color, but I play around a little bit to make sure that's what I ultimately want, and I settle on a slightly off-white. For color number 4, it's currently a bright green on that doorknob handle, so I'm going to move it to be a little bit more golden to match what I already have for the lock. And I think that's pretty golden, so I'm going to add it as a preset so I can come back to it later. If I want to recreate that in the bathroom, I can use the eyedropper, which you're familiar with, or I can use the preset, which we just...
This just might be me missing it in the video or in previous videos, but I noticed that Rocio highlighted the gameplay feature of moving walls as opposed to deleting them and redrawing them. The reason why I wanted to point this out in this video is that I am curious as to whether or not a hotkey exists for players to click and drag to delete their walls, much like we are able to do in The Sims. Again, if I just missed this, then feel free to comment below. I'm far from perfect when it comes to keeping up with absolutely everything about Life by You, but I did want to bring this up since this impacts the UX usability when it comes to building walls. The other feature that I thought was very interesting is that Rocio had to update the floors to be room-based flooring. I'm not sure what this means for builders and potentially modders, but it suggests that floors don't recognize barriers like they did in The Sims because we never had to update the floors based on what the game recognizes as rooms. I don't like that feature of building because it suggests that we will have to constantly update the floors based on rooms before changing a floor in a specific room like Rocio does here in the bathroom. A lot of times builders will change their walls yet again in a room after placing their floors, so this feature suggests that we'll have to constantly click on the update floors based on rooms functions in order to continue building. I might be misunderstanding this though. I think that this interrupts a player's experience building a lot, and I would say that it makes the building process less seamless. I don't get why floors just don't automatically recognize barriers like they did back in The Sims, where you can actually create borders for your floors and walls if you wanted to, and then just shift click to fill an area. And how would this update floors to room-based flooring, I guess, work for decks or for outdoor areas in a home? Does the Life by You game only recognize rooms built within walls, or would the player actually have to manually paint a patio or a deck area? So these are the kind of questions that are popping up in my head here. I also don't see how a player could delete a floor easily using hotkeys either, but I won't expand on that observation in this video as I just kind of feel like I just don't understand this aspect, if I'm going to be quite honest with you guys. I also wanted to point out that the snap to grid mode is pretty cool, and I like how there is still a grid and that players now have the option to snap to it for wall and object placements. I thought that that was very well done and very wise to have within a gameplay feature. So well done there.
Just added. You know, I might want to separate these doors out a little bit more. That might help. To be quite honest, I have a lot of opinions on placement of doors from renting so many apartments over the years. And now we go to the front door where I'm going to lay out a path. So I go to the terrain tiles, pick out some bricks, and I end up laying these about the width of the door so that hopefully it looks like a nice cohesive path from the street to my door. And for the actual front door, I want to make sure that it's a wood that matches the interior a bit better, so I just make it a bit darker and a little bit more red toned. And now that we're done with the bones of the house, let's go on to furnishing, because that's something that I really wanted to be able to show you this time around. Here you can see some of the categories that we have available, and again, disclaimer, we're editing and we're adding stuff all of the time, so stuff might come, stuff might go. And if you have something specific in mind, you can of course search, so let me actually go ahead and do that, because let's start with a bed for our bedroom. Now for an artistic cut to avoid the half an hour I spent looking at beds, And this is the one I settle on because it has so many options. So let me make the most of those 5 customization slots. And I kind of zoom out here so that I can see what it might look like in, regards to the entire room. I personally really want it to all work together. I tend to use a lot of the same colors in my rooms. So I go with a dark purple to complement the walls and hopefully still be a good bedding color. Now that I've kind of set the tone for the bedroom, I'm going to go ahead and sort by the room, so bedroom, and then decide on a dresser. I go with something nice and simple, and right about here is when I realize how big this room actually is. And with so much room, I figure why not add a vanity, even though I do, spoiler alert, realize that it doesn't quite fit the aesthetic of the room. Now that I've sorted by nightstands, I go ahead and pick out a very simple design and put one on each side of the bed. Now I go to decorations, and I put an alarm clock on one of the side tables. For the other side table, I briefly contemplate adding a houseplant before I decide that's not a great idea. I really do need some lighting in here though, so I go to lighting and then I sort by table lamps. Once I've settled on a design, I go ahead and zoom in to make sure that I'm placing this exactly where I want it to go on this side table, and I place it on the other side as well for good measure. Now that I've realized how big I've made this room, I decide to make a little nook for whoever lives here to play guitar. So I place down a guitar and I put down a chair. I'm kind of just putting them down for now, and I'm going to actually place them a little bit more carefully in a second. I like to just put down everything that I want or think I want, and as you can see, zoom in to start to arrange them. If you have a different way of decorating, let us know in the comments. We've found out that everyone on the team plays a little differently. To continue decorating, I sort by fitness equipment, and here you can see there's a lot of options for machinery and weights. But I decide for a house like this, I'm going to go with a step. You'll probably notice this throughout the video, but this step moves around a lot while we try to find a spot for it. And next up is going to be a desk. I've gone ahead and moved the bed so that we have enough room to put a desk on this back wall, and I pick out a chair before I pick out my desk. So I'm thinking of a desk that might be good for both gaming and for work. I decide on this desk because it feels nice, simple, and also big enough for a computer that I think will be good. And here I double and triple check that this desk is in the corner just right and that the chair is perfectly set with the desk. And I go back and reopen the decorations and quickly get sidetracked with the trash can, so I go ahead and put that. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but green feet means that someone can access that item. Now I decide to put some shelving. I think, oh, maybe this would be great next to the desk, but realize quickly, no, that wall will look way too crowded. So I place it in the middle of the room while I do some rearranging. After some quick moving magic, you'll find that the vanity just poof disappears and the room looks a little nicer. Now that I have a better composition for my room, I decide to fill out this wall here with another piece of shelving. And this time I actually sort by bookshelves. I go with this very simple bookshelf because I know I don't have a lot of room here and I don't want to crowd it too much, but I do think this one will look nice. And you've probably noticed that as I place things, it does still cost money. That being said, this is an empty lot. No one lives here, so this money isn't being charged to any one person. And now we move on to another day of building. You'll notice that I put some windows up because I realized as soon as I opened up my lot, the walls are kind of empty. So here we move into a quick wall decorating montage. I try to think about what might be fun for the person who will live here, so I put up some posters near their workspace as well as that nice greenery. It takes me a couple seconds to put these posters just right. I'll definitely have to come back and just stare at everything with a fine-tooth comb. Next, I search for a mirror because I debated putting one on the wall, but I end up going with a standing mirror, and I really like that. Here you can see where my train of thought kind of leaves me because I realize, oh, well, if I have a mirror here, then I should probably put a rug down. And I'm starting to realize that I have a black, purple, white aesthetic going, so I leave the rugs black. I come back from my little sidetrack to the walls, and I add some floral posters in the back for another pop of color, and a black and white clock. The back wall is still looking pretty empty, so I decide on some landscape paintings for right above the bed. Again, I go ahead and put 3 of them. And now for a quick spin of my room before I decide, yep, time to move on to the bathroom. Moving on, I clear all my filters and I go to search by room and bathroom. I briefly contemplate adding a toilet paper holder for some reason before I add anything else, but don't worry, I don't do that. I go ahead and add a bathtub first. Feeling awfully fancy in the bathroom because I go for the really nice versions of everything, as you might notice. I quickly add Snap 2 because I want to make sure I'm placing that properly. Then I switch over to showers and add the nice glass shower. And I'm realizing the value of this house is increasing quite rapidly. I don't know if that's a bad thing or not, but we're just going to keep building. I go to buy a toilet and realize I don't really have somewhere I want to place this toilet right now. So I go to walls. I want to add a nice divider here. I click add wall. You just click and drag like when we're building the house. And I think that'll be the right spot for it, but I do want to make sure that I have space. First, we go to our friendly eyedropper and make sure that it matches the rest of the walls. And once it matches, I play around with where it's placed. You can see those two circles actually move the wall back and forth. And my main goal here is to make sure that whoever lives here can actually access everything easily. Now I go back to decorations, filter by room, accidentally click bedroom, go back to bathroom, and you might expect me to go to toilets, but I want to make sure I know where the sink can go before I actually place a toilet. I debate splurging on a nicer sink, but I go with the basic sink and cabinet because I know that's going to fit, and decide to splurge on a mirror. I like the built-in lighting of this LED mirror, and I think that actually works really nice with the square, kind of clean aesthetic I have going here. Next up, I add a cabinet because I want to make sure I have enough space for everything I want to put in this bathroom. And now that I have that there, I think I'm going to put the toilet on the left. I quickly add a shelf behind the tub and move on to the toilet. Finally, I pick the modern toilet because again, this is a very surprisingly nice bathroom, and rearrange for that toilet. So I'm really liking this layout, and I think next up is to add some just nice decorations. So I know in the decorations we have this Himalayan salt lamp, which means I probably want a table for it. So I go ahead and search a side table, and immediately that blue and white one catches my eye. It already looks perfect for this bathroom. I go back to bathroom decor, and I add that Himalayan salt lamp. And I really like the look of this, but I think a rug would just pull this all together a little better. So I actually go back to category, go to deco, and go to rugs. There's this one particular rug that just looks so incredibly fluffy. I just know that I want to touch that after I get out of the shower or the bathtub. Since I'm already in rugs, I go ahead and add one to the sink. And looking around, I see that the walls are kind of empty, so I make sure to go back to bathroom. And once I'm in bathroom, I go back to decorations and add a towel rack. And once that's in, I'm really liking the bathroom. I go ahead and take a better look and realize that one shelf is not the right color. So I go ahead and change it to another one of its defaults and take a nice look at both rooms before I decide, yep, I think I can move on. Hope you like those too. And now for the living room. Really quickly, I wanted to show you that you can drag walls up and down to adjust the height of your floor, and similarly, you can adjust the roof either up or down to match. I will leave the walls as is for now and actually show you how to add a trim, since I know that was something folks asked about before. So here we have options for both vertical and horizontal trims. Here I'm showing you the horizontal thin trim. I go ahead and turn off snapping so that I can be a little bit more defined in where I want that trim. As you can see, there's just a nice stripe along the bottom. I'll show you on this wall what a horizontal wide looks like. And I move on to the front wall to show you what a vertical trim looks like. I go with the vertical block, and you can see that it juts out a little bit so that it gives the wall a third dimension. And just like anything else, you can remove a trim. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. I don't actually want that trim there, but I do want to show you one last trim. So I go ahead back to the wall, and once I'm clicked on the wall, I go and show you the horizontal bevel because I think that one's kind of just neat. That being said, I don't actually want most of those trims. I do want the horizontal thin, and I do put that on every single wall so that they kind of all match. Now a quick montage of me adding this trim to each of my walls. I decide against putting any other trims on my bathroom or bedrooms or even this interior white wall because I like the way that this trim breaks up the pattern. I don't necessarily think that will be the case for those rooms.
Part of the reason why I started this channel was to have direct conversations with the internet, I suppose. I think that we need to address the elephant in the room. We need to compare this to the Paralives house building and advanced object placement videos. And feel free to go watch those quickly if you'd like. Where Life by You really loses some luster is its object placement, and a big reason why is that Paralives is offering something never done before, and that is the ability to customize the shape, size, and angle of the object. In Paralives' advanced object placement video, they showed off the ability to build an Inukshuk just by using the same rock object. This was groundbreaking in the life simulation community. What I am seeing here in Life by You's build is the placement of objects, but with similar customization options as offered in The Sims 3. When Rocio went to recolor some of the objects she placed, I counted up to 5 different recoloring slots on some objects, which is really just one more slot than what we had in The Sims 3 for some objects. This is all good and fine, and if Paralives never released their gameplay on lot building, I think that the life simulation gamer community would be a lot more impressed with Life by You's building capabilities. Life simulation players were blown away by the Paralives videos, and they didn't even have to explain what they were doing. They just showed their capabilities. I've analyzed the race to the next iteration of the life simulation games in one of my very first videos on this channel, but where Paralives falls short is giving their community a deadline expectations for when an alpha or a beta version will be released, but that's for a whole other video that I've done previously, and I might even do an update on that, so comment below if you'd like me to do an update on the analysis of the next iteration of Life Sims. Anyways, my point still stands that there seems to be less customization features in Life by You than what we can do with Paralives. Even though we were teased at the end of one of the other Life by You build videos that we can adjust the size and shape of the windows, that doesn't seem to be the case for the objects. I also really like that we can adjust the wall height in Life by You, and this does pose the question as to whether true split level homes will be possible with different wall heights in the early access game. And I also have to wonder what the wall height limitations are. And for example, in here we really only see 4 of them, and there are also certain height requirements for commercial buildings, so I'm kind of wondering what those measurements are and if it would be possible for us to actually recreate certain scales realistically or not. It wouldn't matter to me if I'm being completely honest, but I am curious as to whether this is possible or not in terms of whether or not there are specific measurements to those larger wall heights. The wall trims was also something that really impressed me in this video. In The Sims 3, I'm always switching between the different wallpaper options to find the right trim that matches the right paint and whatnot. Having the trim customization option for me is going to be great since I can now just add it in. Again, I am just concerned about there not existing a hotkey to paint a trim on all of the walls, as that would make a builder's job much easier. However, Life by You seems like the kind of game that will empower players with the ability to customize their own hotkeys, and it was also a question posed by the community on their YouTube videos as well. So I'm sure it'll be addressed in the near future, if it does get addressed at all. And I'm sure it will. Like, I'm sure that they'll release some more social media carousel posts that really address the hotkeys and all of that. And if it gets released before this video, then I do apologize for the premature assumption here.
And much like the bathroom, I think I could do with a wall divider here, so I go ahead and put one out for what I think will be the living room and the kitchen. It looks pretty good. I accidentally put down another piece of wall, so excuse me. And I end up realizing that this window is a bit off-center, so I go ahead and fix that, and looking at the rest of my windows, decide to come back and fix those later as well. But my first focus is this wall. I want to make sure I have enough room for all of my kitchen counters, so I do push it out a little bit, and once I'm happy with it, eyedropper is back, and we're making sure this wall matches everything else. I'm pretty happy with that and that layout. I look around again just to make sure everything's shaping up, and it's time for this empty space. I have just the rug in mind from when we were in the rugs earlier, so I go back to deco, go back to rugs, and I want this ginormous red rug. It just looks so nice, and I'm really excited to kind of build the room around this piece. Next is a TV and a TV stand. So I go ahead and go with the simple TV stand. I lock it into place, and I do end up rearranging it a little bit on the back wall, but like everything else in this house, it's going to move again, so don't worry. Next is a TV for my TV stand, so I go with the rectangular stand TV, and once I find it fits pretty perfectly in the middle, I'm happy with that. I now look at the rest of the room and realize this rug might be better off more horizontal to the street. So I switch that up, and I know I need some couches next. And just looking at these initial couches, I already like this red one. It matches and it really goes with the vibe already. So I go ahead and place that one. I immediately think, well, what's one couch? I need two couches. So I add a second couch, and this one doesn't fit the aesthetic yet, but I go ahead and adjust the colors so that it almost matches the other couch as well. I'm really liking how colorful this is, but like many of you have probably noticed, it doesn't look or feel quite center, so I do move everything again. I will say once I add in some decorations, it does feel more cohesive and more centered, so hopefully trust the process. Speaking of decorations, I go ahead and search for shelves. I think a shelf will really help pull this together, but as I'm looking through, I realize I don't really know what kind of shelf I want. I do know that these hexagonal shelves would probably look good, so I end up placing a couple of those. And by a couple, I do mean about half a dozen, but it's just once I got into the right spot and I got the right spacing between them, I thought they looked really nice and they built out a really neat organic pattern. So hopefully you like it. And once I've placed them all, I actually realized I could have actually shown you another tool instead. So you can actually click on it and just click the little duplicate tool and it'll allow you to make another one. I didn't actually want that one, so I go ahead and delete it, just to show you that you can be more efficient if you're not me. So next I go ahead and move on to changing the color of these. I really wanted to see what the defaults were because I didn't want to spend too much time in the color wheel, and realizing I like that default, I go ahead and copy it over to everything else, and that's using the little paintbrush tool. Realizing I didn't quite scratch that shelf itch with those, I go back to shelves. I pick out this triangle shelf because I think it will hopefully fit and also still match the aesthetic. I take a look at what I've done, make sure I like it before I move on, because I remember looking at the shelves, there was a shelf I actually wanted for the kitchen. So I go ahead, pick that out, drag it over, we'll worry about that later. I also take note of this little decorative plant, which I think will work just above this shelf, and now I have more plants. I have a quick moment where I realize I forgot to put a trash can in the bathroom, so I go ahead and add one and get back to my living room. One thing I immediately want to do is fill that corner, so I go ahead and go back to lighting and I go back to floor lamps. I don't want to put the same exact floor lamp. I think about it for a second, but decide that this triangle lamp might actually work better next to the triangle shelf. That does, however, mean I think I should move this door, so I luckily have enough room to do so, and I pull back the walls and just shift the door over to make sure I can have enough space for everybody walking through. Now for this big empty space in the living room, I think we need a dining table here, so I filter by room, go to dining room, and get to the tables. The table is going to be the main big piece here, so I go with the regular rectangular kitchen table. I like the wood, but I do think it's the wrong color, so I go ahead and make that darker, and once I'm happy with it, I move on to the chairs. I like a good tall back to my chair, so I go with this basic chair. I know I can color it to be hopefully a little bit more in line with the rest of the house, so I place it, I go through some of the defaults, decide I don't really like any of them for this particular aesthetic, and I change it to match the red. Once I'm happy with the chair, I go ahead and duplicate it for each of the sides of the table, and now I have my dining room set. And once again, I'm reminded that these walls are kind of empty, so looking at this back wall over here, I decide to go find a nice decoration. I go back to wall deco and I place some photographs. You know, the living room might have some more fun memories and stuff like that. I decide to filter by houseplants, and this one red flower looks like it would kind of match, so I go ahead and place it. While looking at dining room tables, I realize I completely forgot a coffee table, so I go over, browse, and try a couple of them before I settle on one that's a nice wooden finish like a lot of this house is turning out to be. I place it between the couches, but once I do, I realize I also want an ottoman, so I go ahead, pick one out. I really like this one's shape, and once it's out there, I have to do some more rearranging. After I shift everything over, I place the ottoman in the corner in the end, and you might have noticed it's white, so I'm going to go ahead and make it match the rest of my furniture by making it red. I might be overdoing it on the red, but it is what it is. And we still have a very blank wall in the back, so I decide to pull out a shelf. I think this will work, and I just need to recolor it. And now for a quick little montage of me playing around with the colors. I did speed this up because I didn't want to bore you too much, but I also wanted to show you some of the color combinations that are possible, and hopefully inspire you for when you do decide to build your own houses. Don't worry, I don't make it red. I go with a brown that matches the rest of the house. And once it's in place, I actually go ahead and go to the decorations and add a little tree. I move it around a little bit, but I'm not going to bore you by filling out these shelves right now. Next, I actually go to add a speaker because I realize I don't actually have a speaker for my television yet. Once I'm in the speakers, I decide on this tall speaker and realize really quickly how crowded this space is getting. So I decide to move some stuff, shift around so that I have room for this speaker. And I do find one spot where the speaker works, and honestly, once it's in there, I really like how it's slotted in, so I leave it be. And now for a fireplace. I saw the fireplace while I was just looking around, and honestly, I got pretty obsessed to the point where I was like, I'm willing to redo half of this house to make it fit. Once I find my fireplace again, I go ahead and place it. It is the brick fireplace. You might recognize it from some of our other videos. I personally want it for the other color scheme, but you'll see it in just a second. I do have to move this shelf to make it work, but honestly, like I said, I'm willing to sacrifice whatever I need to at this point. I decide the tree is one of those sacrifices, so away it goes. But the fireplace is now accessible, and that is what matters to me. So I place that, and I change it to the secondary color scheme, which I think works so well with the walls here. It does mean that I have to move this shelf because it's just way too crowded in that corner, but I actually think it fits better on this wall anyway, so I'm happy with it. It did leave behind an entirely open wall, so more room for wall decor. I go back, and I actually go back to search by dining room because I think some of that wall deco was what I wanted. I don't necessarily like this geometric shape. I opt out pretty quickly, but I like these photographs because they match the photographs on the other wall, so I'm happy with that too. Before we head to the kitchen, I want to actually put something in this entryway. It feels kind of empty, so I try out a couple of benches. I think a nice bench in the entryway where, you know, thematically you put on your shoes, that kind of thing. And looking at the two that I put side by side, I quickly decide that I like the shape of the pink one more, though I do like the color of the blue one. So I end up taking this pink one and I make it more blue so it kind of matches the bathroom. I even take a look at the bathroom to make sure I like it. Now for the final room, the kitchen. I know I want my appliances on the left side, so I go ahead, pull up the rooms, keep filtering by room, this time going to kitchen. Once I'm here, I go to the modern kitchen set, decide that's a bit too modern for my current house setup, and go to the retro kitchen set. Immediately I know that this is the right set for this house, so I go ahead and place the cabinet, I go ahead and place the stovetop, as well as the sink. Next up on the list of essentials is a refrigerator, so once I have that set, I go ahead, go back to my drop down, and sort by refrigerators. So I'm thinking the refrigerator can be over in the corner. I go ahead and pick one that I think will fit. Once that's in place, I realize I want an island, so I go back to the retro kitchen set, and I pick out the island. I go ahead and place it in the middle, making sure all of the feet stay green. I want this to be very accessible and very usable by whoever ends up living here. But looking at this, I realize the fridge is in like the worst spot for actual cooking. So I go ahead, move this shelf over because it doesn't really need to be there. That was a whim. And I move the fridge. Once the fridge is in the back right corner, everything is slotted into place. So I decide it's actually time to add some color and some appliances. I decide we need some more of that bright blue from the bathroom and the kitchen to make it pop. So I go ahead and make this fridge very loud and very blue. Once I'm happy with that blue, I go ahead and move over to the shelf for one more pop of color, and I make this one a very vibrant blue as well. I'm really liking this white, blue, red, purple combo, so hopefully you are too. And here I am trying to give you a good look at the house. I do end up wrapping it up after these appliances and one more little thing afterward. But let's go ahead and get into appliances. So I go ahead and go to kitchen needs and deco, and I know a couple of these that I'm going to definitely include. One of my first priorities is, of course, a coffee machine. I debate the slightly worse one, but I do go with the nice one, of course. I do add a set of cutting knives because I think those will go really well next to this sink, and I need a microwave, just a necessity, so I go ahead and place that as well. I put a cutting board on the center island, and I do want to put a blender in this last spot over here. And that's pretty much everything. I don't have a toaster or a couple of smaller items, but I can always expand the kitchen later. That's it for the interior of this house.
One thing that bothered me was the object deletion process. Rocio had to select the object and actually delete it in the UI menu, and Rocio did this several times. This bothered me because it again suggests that this is the deletion process for the objects is yet another drawn out process, and I would have loved to have seen a hotkey used such as a backspace or a delete button. These hotkeys are important for builders because it helps to keep a builder in their creative flow. When there are additional processes added in order for a builder to achieve a specific function, it takes them out of that creative flow as they now have to focus on additional actions to achieve that function. In other words, they get a little distracted by the game itself. When a builder player is in their creative flow, they can easily sink in hours of gameplay within a single day. Heck, even regular players can easily sink in hours of gameplay in a single day if they are invested enough within their session. Now, I'm sure that some of you watching this video can relate to staying up until late at night playing a life simulation game, losing track of time, and I'm absolutely guilty of this myself, and I'm actually kind of proud of it. I am sure that the hotkeys and shortcuts exist in Life by You, but as a prospective player, I just needed to see these hotkeys in action a little more in this video so that I am reassured that the building gameplay is a seamless experience. I was very impressed by the tree placement in the shelves for that little tree object. I think that when it comes to clutter objects, Life by You has the potential of being on the same level of Paralives in terms of players being able to get creative and show a lived-in space and just place those clutter objects wherever. However, I wasn't entirely sold on the kitchen shelves being placed over the stove, and this is a very nitpicky thing to really observe here, but I actually thought that the kitchen shelves over that stove would have served better as just like an empty shelving unit that you could place objects on as opposed to it having clutter objects already placed, but that's just a personal opinion of mine, and again, that's just me being a little nitpicky here. I also wanted to say that I absolutely love the retro kitchen objects, and I really hope that those stay for the early access game. I think that those are very well done and designed, and I can't wait to play with that set when the early access version releases in March. One other observation that I also wanted to share with you guys was the chair placement surrounding the dining room table. And what I noticed was that the chairs seem to not snap into the table as gracefully as I would expect. For example, I would expect the chairs to just automatically snap into the table properly, and it especially seemed like Rocio was struggling to get that first chair to snap in. I'm wondering if I just missed it or if you needed to activate the snap into grid mode in order to make it happen. But yeah, if I just missed a certain important detail there, feel free to comment below and just kind of correct me there. So let's go ahead and finish the rest of the video.
That's it for the interior of this house. Let's move outside for one last thing. As you can see, this was a bit earlier on in the build, but I was kind of jumping around a lot already and I didn't want to add more to that. But I did want to show you our fences. So here you can see we have two base fences, this one right here and the one I'm building on the left. Once I've built it out, you can see that it's a very bright blue. And that's because each of those are components that you can replace. So as you can see, I'm replacing these pillars with this pillar I've selected. And then I can replace the fencing with any one of these pieces of fence. So hopefully you can mix and match and get the fence that makes the most sense for the house that you're trying to build. Don't worry, neither of these will stick with this house. So for this fence, you can go ahead and click on it. And as you can see in the drop down, I'm under caps and I'm adjusting the cap. Right now it's a brick, but you can go ahead and change it between any of the available textures. You can use any of the filters on the left as well. You can also change the color of what that cap would be. I end up going with this marble, and I actually changed the color because I think this marble has a really lovely grain, but I want it to look like wood. And you can do that for both the cap and the body of the wall. Another thing that you can do is go to this little gear icon and toggle on the wall caps and corner caps. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching. Hope that showed off some more of our tools, and please feel free to leave all of your questions and comments below. Have a great weekend.
The fence customization option was really cool and I loved it. Great job, Life by You. That is a great feather to have in your cap there. The one question that I have is that after you customize the fence options, if you are able to click and drag that custom fence, or maybe you have to save it as a preset before. I think it would be tedious to have to customize every single time you wanted to use that fence, but that's just me, and a click and drag option would have been great to see there. This pretty much ends the video, and at this time I want to address yet another elephant in the room. What about stairs, roofs, and building floor limits? Are split levels possible yet? Can we have basements? Can we have walkout basements? What about building on foundations? In my opinion, there are a lot more building features that should have been covered in this video. I kind of feel like we need yet another part when it comes to understanding Life by You's building capabilities in the early access game to try to really tie it all together. We have come to the point a long time ago where we really need to start comparing what the next iteration of life simulation games are purporting themselves to offer players. When I compare this video to the house building gameplay video released by Paralives, I actually feel like I get to see more building features from Paralives in a third of the time in their speed build video done 2 years ago. Now, I'm not trying to knock the Life by You build video, but I just happen to have learned more about the building features in Paralives, such as learning a little more about the split level features there. I apologize if I seem overly critical of the Life by You video, but once again, I'm just left with more questions than answers yet again. Had this video been released before the Paralives video, which would have been impossible, I think that it would have had more of an impact on the life simulation gaming space, demonstrating building feature standards that players can expect in the next generation of life simulation games. As a player, enthusiast, and observer of Life by You, it feels like the building features, considered were timidly ideated in comparison to Paralives. However, I am also very open and accepting that Life by You will likely be a game that changes and grows over time. Since this is being backed by Paradox, I can't help but feel that they are positioning Life by You as a game that will change over time, much like the first Cities Skylines game has. Cities Skylines 1, with its mods and DLC, is an entirely new game over its 7-year development, and the growth was graceful. And I feel like Life by You is approaching its entrance into the video game industry with a similar mentality, that longevity and player retention is valued over consumer hype. Speaking of hype, I do think that it is about time for Life by You to look into delivering on some consumer hype at this time. The delayed early access announcement honestly deflated some momentum and the hype for the Life by You game, and I think that it would be nice to see Life by You attempt to really dazzle the life simulation gamers with something that just looks beautiful. Now, I don't want to speak on Rocio's house building skills since I am not the best house builder myself, but I think that this video was a missed opportunity to really try to enchant and spark the imaginations of players with a one-bedroom house built to awe and inspire. Sure, I love the practicality of everything being shown, and overall I thought it was a great video. Perhaps a remastered version of Rocio's build could be done in the near future to show some more of the build features. This would make for some excellent digital storytelling. And of course, for the features that we didn't get to see in action this go around, again, the reason that might be the case is that the Life by You team has changed them, or maybe it has evolved to a point where they're just not ready to show them off at this time. And, you know, I'm saying this, but it's okay because this is a game that is being developed with an early access version being released in March. I understand that it is very much a project in development, but I would like to at least acknowledge as an observation that the lack of stair construction and multi-level construction in this video is something that we should have seen again in this video, which brings me on to my next point. In June, we were given a video that showed Rocio building a house that actually did show stair construction and building on multiple floors. So it pays to have a long memory, to say the very least. So it's not like they haven't shown these construction features before that I was just saying that they were missing in this video. As a consumer for this product, I'm just confused what the larger version is with these videos. If you watch both the build and furnish a house video and the video released in June, they're actually quite similar when it comes to the features they show off. And I would argue that the June video showed off even more features since it demonstrated stairs and placing your house on a foundation, like Rocio actually used those tools. As someone who loves storytelling, I have to ask what the larger vision and end goal of these two videos are. Like, why do we have two videos that show similar features and information that the player should already know? My biggest criticism on this latest video is that, technically speaking, the players aren't being shown anything new about Life by You. Rather, they are being shown content that has pretty much already existed back in June. A little cohesion between this video and the one released in June could have gone a long way, and I would suggest even changing the title to, you know, something like decorating, since the focus is mostly on object placement and decorating rather than exploring all of the build features. And I would say that that was really the novelty in all of it. It really relied in the decorating aspects of the video. And I invite you, as someone interested in Life by You, to rewatch the Life by You June video called How to Build a House, and then compare your learnings from that video to the recent learnings to the video How to Build and Furnish a House. Did you learn anything new about the build features that weren't already explained in June? If I was repurposing these two pieces of content, I would label one of the videos as a part 2 to the other so that players can understand how the video relates to each other, and I would also probably throw them into a playlist as well, into like a build playlist or something. In my last video on Life by You, I described the marketing and messaging as being a little chaotic, and this is an exact demonstration of my point here because we aren't being shown any new build features. If anything is new in this video, it is the object placement, but even that could be argued from a technical perspective when you really look into everything that's been released about Life by You so far. At this point in time, and I hate to get on a soapbox here, when it comes to the marketing of Life by You, actually scratch that. Let's take the word marketing out of the equation here since it's a big word misunderstood by many. When it comes to telling the story of your product, you need cohesive storytelling to excite your prospective audience. In the case of Life by You, the digital storytelling has been all over the place, and now I would criticize it as being repetitive since the players are being virtually told the same story from the most recent video as they were back in June. And yes, this is me being harsh, and it honestly feels like the digital storytelling of Life by You is disjointed and is done on the fly. Again, still standing on my soapbox here, I think that doing the storytelling on the fly was acceptable back when the game was being released in September, but now that there has been an additional 6 or 8 months of a delay, that some time should be dedicated to finalizing and executing on a cohesive content map up until the release. And yes, that was harsh. Even for a small team that likely isn't ready to invest in marketing their product, cohesive storytelling is certainly something that I stand by any day of the week. And I also just want to say that that I am hoping for the best for Life by You. I think that it has the greatest potential between all of the upcoming life simulation games out there. But this kind of storytelling, like the storytelling of their digital product and allowing players to really get a sneak peek into it, hasn't really done itself any favors. And this is an example of it being both chaotic and I would definitely stand 10 toes down and say a little bit repetitive at this point in the game. And I really hate to see Life by You kind of go down that road where the messaging and the stories being told about the Life by You game as an upcoming and exciting life simulation game is just not doing itself any favors here, when it should be really exciting a community and getting them involved. And just for further clarification, I'm still feeling very positive about Life by You. It's just like these certain details, these certain questions that I really keep having is certainly something that I'm not shy about sharing. So, this is my platform, this is my video and all that. So I'm going to continue doing what I do and just being honest with you guys on how I'm feeling and what I'm observing when it comes to Life by You and the promos that they're putting out. Anyways, that is enough out of me. At this time, I want to hear what you have to think about the latest Life by You video. Did you learn anything new about the building features when watching it? Or do you think that what we were shown in this last video didn't teach us anything new from the video published in June? And how do you generally feel about building and decorating in Life by You? Do you think that it will be a very cohesive and seamless experience? I want to know. Anyways, comment below with your thoughts on on what you think and feel about it. And until next time, I just want to thank you so much for watching, and if you'd like to see more videos like this one, then feel free to like and subscribe for more. Thank you again, and please have yourself a wonderful day.